When the news broke about Can Yaman's new relationship, the entire entertainment world held its breath. Fans who had followed the story of Can and Demet for years couldn't believe what they were seeing. For a long time, their love story had been the kind of modern fairy tale people dreamed about: two passionate actors, electric chemistry, and a bond that seemed unbreakable. But now, with Can seen hand in hand with someone new, the silence that followed from Demet Özdemir spoke louder than any words could. Until now. Because this time, Demet decided to speak up. And what she said, no one expected. In a quiet corner of Istanbul, Demet sat down for what seemed like a routine interview about her latest project. Yet when the journalist gently brought up the subject of Can, her expression changed. Her smile softened, her eyes dimmed for a second, and there was a long pause. She took a deep breath, and in that moment, you could feel that this was not a scripted answer. This was real emotion. "I never thought he'd do this," she finally said, her voice almost trembling. Those 7 words were enough to make headlines around the world. For years, fans have speculated about what really happened between the two stars. From the set of Erkenci Kuş to the countless public appearances that followed, Can and Demet had become inseparable in the public eye. But fame, distance, and personal ambitions created a storm neither of them could fully control. After their separation, Can threw himself into his career, moving to Italy, embracing new projects, and building a new life under the European spotlight. Demet, meanwhile, focused on her acting, often keeping her private life carefully hidden. But even so, the shadow of their shared past lingered over both of them. When photos of Can with his new love interest appeared online, fans were divided. Some were genuinely happy for him, saying it was time he moved on. Others accused him of being insensitive, claiming he had forgotten the woman who once stood by his side through everything. But for Demet, seeing those images was more than just a reminder of the past, it was like reopening an old wound she thought had finally healed. "People forget that we're human," she said quietly in that same interview. "They see the glamour, the lights, the red carpets, but they don't see what happens when all of that is gone." She looked down for a moment, her hands nervously playing with the ring on her finger, a simple silver band she has worn for years. "When I saw those pictures, I felt something strange. Not anger. Not jealousy. Just surprise. I never thought he'd do this so soon." Her words spread like wildfire across social media. Within hours, the clip had been viewed millions of times. Fans around the world dissected every gesture, every pause, every subtle expression. Some said she was still in love. Others said she was simply being honest. But no matter how people interpreted it, one thing was clear: her feelings for Can Yaman were far from forgotten. Sources close to Demet claimed that she found out about Can's new relationship through the media, just like everyone else. Apparently, no warning, no heads up, not even a message. They hadn't spoken in months, one insider revealed. There was still respect between them, but they weren't in contact. That's why this hit her so unexpectedly. But despite the pain, Demet's response wasn't filled with bitterness. It was filled with reflection. "We all have the right to be happy," she said, managing a faint smile. "I hope he's happy. I really do. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Some stories never truly end, they just change form." It's that emotional honesty that made her words resonate so deeply. While many celebrities choose to hide their vulnerability, Demet's quiet confession reminded everyone that love, no matter how public or private, leaves an imprint that time doesn't easily erase. The internet buzzed with sympathy and support. Fans left thousands of comments, sharing their own heartbreak stories, relating to her words. For a moment, the glamorous world of fame felt deeply human again. Meanwhile, in Italy, Can Yaman continued to appear in public with his new partner. Paparazzi followed them relentlessly, capturing every smile, every glance, every touch. But behind the flashes, insiders suggested that even Can had been aware of Demet's interview. One report claimed that he watched it alone one evening and stayed silent for hours afterward. No statements, no responses, just silence. Some believe that silence said everything. Demet, on the other hand, seemed determined to move forward. Yet, the traces of nostalgia were undeniable. In another interview days later, she was asked whether she believed in second chances in love. Her answer was simple but powerful. "I believe in timing," she said. "Sometimes two people love each other deeply, but the moment isn't right. And when you lose that moment, you lose more than you think." Those words reignited the flames of hope among fans who still believed in a possible reunion. Across Twitter, hashtags like #CanDemetForever and #StillLove surfaced once again, proving that the story between these two stars continues to live in the hearts of millions. Behind the scenes, close friends of Demet revealed that she had written a letter to Can months ago but never sent it. It was meant as a form of closure, something deeply personal. She poured her heart out in that letter, a source said. She wanted to thank him for everything, the laughter, the lessons, even the heartbreak. But she never sent it because she didn't want to reopen old wounds. Whether Can ever knew about that letter remains a mystery. One evening, Demet attended a private event in Istanbul. Reporters waiting outside asked her directly if she had anything to say to Can. She smiled politely and said, "No, nothing. Some things don't need words anymore." But as she turned to leave, someone caught a brief glimpse of her eyes, glassy, emotional, holding back a tear. That image, though fleeting, said more than any interview could. Months later, as Can's relationship continued to make headlines, Demet began sharing cryptic posts on social media. One caption read, "Sometimes silence protects more than words ever could." Another said, "You can't replace memories, you can only learn to live beside them." Fans immediately connected these to her unspoken feelings toward Can. It wasn't bitterness, it was acceptance. Still, people close to the actress insist she has no regrets. "She's at peace with how things unfolded," one of her team members said. "But she'll always have a special place in her heart for him." You don't just forget someone like that. What makes this entire situation so fascinating is the emotional duality. Both Can and Demet have moved on publicly, yet they remain tied together in the eyes of fans, and perhaps, deep down, in each other's hearts. Every new headline, every new photograph, every subtle reference seems to bring their story back to life again and again. And maybe that's what makes their connection timeless. It's not about who's dating whom now, it's about the bond that once was, the one that inspired millions, and the emotions that still linger even when the cameras are off. In a world of scripted romances and publicity stunts, their story felt authentic. It felt real. At the end of the interview, Demet was asked one final question: if you could say one thing to him now, what would it be? She looked directly into the camera and paused. The silence lasted nearly 10 seconds. Then she said, "Thank you, for teaching me what love really means." Those words were neither bitter nor nostalgic. They carried maturity, grace, and a quiet sadness. It was the closure fans didn't know they needed. For Demet, it was perhaps her final chapter in a story that had defined a huge part of her life. But the public reaction showed something undeniable. People still want to believe that maybe, someday, their paths will cross again, under better circumstances, in a softer light. Because if there's one thing that Can and Demet taught everyone, it's that love doesn't always end with goodbye. Sometimes, it simply waits, in silence, for the right moment to begin again. As the camera lights faded and the interview ended, Demet stood up, thanked the crew, and walked away quietly. Yet behind that calm smile was a woman who had faced heartbreak, healing, and growth, and who still carried the echoes of a love story that once captivated the world. And perhaps that's why her confession shook everyone so deeply. Because even when fame fades and stories move on, some truths, like the ones she finally dared to speak, stay with us forever.